And it's always also good to have General Jack Keane, of course, a four-star general and former acting chief of staff and vice chair of the U.S. Army. Thanks for joining us, General.
Glad to be here.
So much to talk to you about. Let's start with these terror attacks that we saw on Friday. 3 separate attacks on 3 separate continents. All seem to be linked with ISIS. The State Department shockingly says, well, we're not sure if they were coordinated or not. Does this sort of thing happen by chance, General Keane?
Well, I think it's hard to put your finger on any of that. Certainly these are, at a minimum, inspired. It's incredibly coincidental that they would occur within hours of each other.
Yeah.
But I don't think we have the intelligence, frankly, to be able to say whether they were directed and also, in fact, coordinated. That's just where our intelligence services stand. I'm not saying they would come out and say that to us publicly, even if they knew it.
Then we had another overnight attack carried out apparently by Boko Haram in Chad, and meanwhile the FBI late Friday warned of potential domestic attacks here in the U.S. focused around July 4th. This is a very, very hot time, it seems, General Keane. Am I misreading this?
No, you're not. As a matter of fact, ISIS, during every Ramadan period, which is the holiest period for Muslims that lasts greater than a month, and it's about introspection and fasting, they actually declare an offense during that period of time, and some of that is directed in general against non-believers, but also directed against non-believing Muslims to compel them to gain their attention that their radicalized version of Islam is a true belief system. So this has been a pattern of their behavior since they really came to the forefront in 2011.
General, I got to ask you a question because I know that you were active during the Gulf Wars, and I remember hearing the news reports, and I heard many Muslim leaders saying that the United States should not have any offensives. We should not be sending any sorties during the month of Ramadan because that would be offensive to the people living there trying to practice their faith. But for the terrorists, it's full speed ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Given their belief system and what they're trying to achieve, it's indisputable that the overwhelming majority of Muslims do not agree with the belief system that the radicals have, and they're clearly attacking Muslims on a much greater scale than they are so-called infidels who are not followers of the Islamic faith, and they're truly committed to it. And I think what's realistically happening here. ISIS is the fastest growing radical Islamic movement we have ever seen. I've never seen a movement grow so fast, except Nazism in Germany in the 1930s. And what's remarkable is the lack of will and resolve and moral courage to deal with what was evil at the time and predicted to get worse is much where the United States is and Europe and our allies. They're looking at this right in the face and recognizing that this is inherently evil and it's growing by scale, and we really do not have much of a strategy to cope with it. Eventually we will, because the barbarism and the killing will get so severe that we'll truly have to do something meaningful about it.
But General Keane, this is Scotty Hughes here. You brought up the point that you've never seen a movement except for maybe Nazism that grew so fast. Could that be potentially that it's basically the same evil underneath a different name? That this is not just something that was birthed, depending on who you want to blame it on, whether it be Bush or Obama, but this has just been the heart and the nature of the evil that's existed with this group of people and these extremists within this religion forever. And so, therefore, the reason why it's growing so quickly is that it's always been here, just maybe underneath a different calling.
Well, when it comes to radical Islam, it did have, particularly epic periods where it achieved some level of dominance in the 7th century and in the 10th century. And then those movements essentially were either faded away because of lack of popular appeal, or they were just basically defeated. And given this fight is largely inside the Islamic faith itself, the rejection of this movement and its ideology actually has to come from Muslims, not from so-called infidels or people who practice Christianity or the Jewish faith. It's not that we don't have to deal with them to counter their finances, to stop them militarily. I think we do, but the fact that this is a multi-generational problem it's largely in the hands of Muslim followers to deal with undermining this ideology, and for the clerics that truly understand the theology involved here to be very much involved in that and supported by their national leaders.
And yet we're not hearing that. And so now we have this threat supposedly on July 4th has been risen here in the United States. So they're telling us right now that we need to be careful, not only in Washington, D.C., but at cities across the United States. If there was right now something to happen domestically, we sit here continuously every day. We're hearing stories of 3 arrested in New York City for being ISIS followers. That ISIS is here in the United States. Would this be an attack from outside of the borders that come in, or would it be just what the president's considered domestic terrorist, aka ISIS,
the lone
here
wolves.
the lone wolves here in our homeland?
Yeah, well, most of our law enforcement agencies, intelligence services, truly believe it's in fact it's the latter. Much as you see taking place in other parts of the world, is that ISIS, has developed a worldwide following, largely due to the success they've had and the fact that they still claim large swaths of territory in Syria and Iraq, and they've expanded into Libya, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Egyptian Sinai, and Afghanistan, and painfully, as we've just seen, in Tunisia. The fact that they're able to do all of this, and yesterday was a 1-year anniversary of their caliphate.
Yeah.
And obviously their flag is flying high in these lands where they have some level of control, has developed a following in countries where people are willing to kill their fellow citizens, and in doing so, probably get themselves killed. So I think it's the latter one that would surface, people that are inspired by this, largely also on the internet, and probably do not have much contact. I think our FBI is pretty much all over those who have traveled to the region and have come back. But I think we have to note that there's been 50 arrests in 6 months dealing with this movement inside the United States, and that's really quite unprecedented.
General Keane, we've only got 30 seconds left, but today's the deadline for the Iran nuclear deal. Do you think that they're going to pull something out here? Because all signs are that neither side is very close, and frankly, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Well, I'm very concerned about the deal, and I'd rather have no deal than I think what we're heading to, which is a pretty bad one. So, yes, I agree. It looks like there will be a delay. They're tied up over sanctions relief. The Iranians want immediate sanctions relief. They don't want any inspections that are consequential on their military sites, particularly where they do their research and development. And they don't want to reveal the level of research that they have they've already accomplished over these 15-year journey to a nuclear weapon. Those are, as I understand it, what's been leaked out are the 3 issues that remain on the table.
You'd think that would be an indication that maybe they're not actually playing a square deal with us on this, and that should be a sign that they should walk away. Kerry and Obama should.
Well, I don't think we'll ever walk away, because I think it's a foreign policy objective of the administration to accomplish this nuclear deal, and they paid a price for it because they've largely ignored Iran's influence in Syria and in Iraq, to be able to accomplish this deal. So I don't think they're walking away, which gives many pause for concern that we'll wind up with something here that's less than satisfactory and puts the security of the region and the American people at risk.
General Jack Keane, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Always good to have you, sir.
Yeah, good talking to you this morning. Thank you.